So when we can have those conversations, understand each other, and come to an understanding, we're always going to be better off. But we can't have those conversations unless we do it on purpose, unless we have that bravery, that vulnerability to take that step.
Welcome everyone to LearnOn Weekly. I'm Jim Sandher with EVERFI, and today I'm super excited to be talking with my friend Joe Salazar.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm a social worker by trade, but I have spent the last decade or so dedicating my time to supporting schools and folks in the workplace to develop social and emotional competence, both for students and for adults.
Obviously, there's some working definitions of social emotional learning, but what does SEL mean to you?
When I think about it, I always imagine social and emotional learning as a process. And it's a process that every single person goes through from birth and all the way through adulthood. It's the forever journey of us as people. And I think that process involves first knowing oneself, being able to monitor our thoughts and make sense of our thoughts and our behaviors and what all of that means, but then to also look outward and understand other people and the way that they think, the way that they operate, the way that they behave, and then use all of that information, that introspection and that observation to make responsible decisions about the ways that we interact with each other and with the world, ultimately for the greater good.
Thank you for giving that sort of personal take on what it means to you. In the intro to your book, you mentioned kind of just feeling a little bit of loneliness while working in education. And I think that's something that, you wrote this before schools were closed and people were working remotely. And I think people might be feeling that way more than ever now. But even when I was reading it, I was like, it's just so powerful to hear because it's something that I think a lot of us feel in any profession, but especially in the world of education sometimes, because you're just overloaded, burned out, and working all the time. And honestly, I talk to teachers sometimes who are just I love kids, but I realized that this whole week, I only socialize with children. I didn't even talk to another adult much this week. I just wanted to know if you could sort of talk a little bit about your experience with that, feeling that isolation and loneliness and how it kind of motivated you to do more of this work.
Yeah, I as I mentioned, I'm a school social worker first. That was my very first job. And having that role of school social worker is a little bit unique in that we go into schools oftentimes without a peer. So there isn't a team of social workers in most schools or in any school that I'm aware of. We're often the only one of our kind. And so we enter schools as strangers in a lot of cases. And it's often just, here are the students that you're going to work with, go work with them and then send them back when you're done. And that felt extremely isolating for me as a new social worker. And it didn't seem to get much better as time went on. I didn't get to know the other teachers in the way that I needed to be able to have those important conversations with them about what we're doing for their student. And so there wasn't that opportunity to connect in the lunchroom. There wasn't that opportunity to talk as we passed in the halls. All the meetings that we were having were right down to business. And so that opportunity to know other people in a personal and genuine and even informal way just wasn't built into the schools that I was going into. And I felt like the students really suffered as a result.
In some ways, these concepts sound so easy. I just needed to connect informally with my colleagues. That sounds easy. It's just chatting, but then at the same time, getting to know someone's cultural background, their personality style, their communication techniques, that's not sometimes I think we pick up a lot of these things naturally and informally, just over the years, you get to know people, you understand how they communicate. But I think what is interesting about your work and the work of a lot of other people in this field is you're actually giving people tactical methods for how to identify their own values and see them in others.
You're so right when you say that, this seems like it should be easy, but we don't really take the time to dig in to those conversations that you were mentioning, the values conversations, the cultural background conversations. And those don't take place unless you do them on purpose, or, we have 30 years to collect that information piece by piece, and we don't know until, we're down the road and ready to retire. So what I wanted to do was think about what are those essential conversations that would help me understand another person in a way that would make it easier for me to trust them, to depend on them, to understand them when they make a decision that I disagree with, to understand where they're coming from, to understand why they do the things they do, what their quirks are, what would make them have a great day, what could I potentially do that might step on their toes. So how do I have these conversations so I know this person in a way that I trust them if they trust me?
I don't know if I could just quickly list off my values. I definitely have them. And if I sat down and did the work, that's why it just really spoke to me, because it's like, I really want to sit down and start writing them out. And I'm just curious, why that's such an important part of the process for you.
I was explaining to someone why it is so important for me to not just be on time, but be early for everything. And I got into a neurotic level of detail about all of this. And this person stopped me and said, in a really kind, but kind of way. And they said to me, why are you even like this? How did you even get like this? And I thought, oh boy, how did I even get like this? Why is this one thing so important to me? Why does it drive me so crazy when people do these certain things? And why do I do things the way that I do? And so I really took that to heart. How did you even get like this? And I started to dig into it. And I asked myself, what are the rules that I live by that other people may not live by? And I came up with a pretty concise list of 6 things that I believe are important, my values, the rules that I live by. And when I sat down to think about those 6 things and how they drive the way that I behave, the way that I interact with other people, the expectations that I have of myself, the expectations that I have of other people, and the way that I developed those, my lifetime of experiences that have caused me to believe these things, I realized that probably no one else has the same view on these 6 things as I have. And that means that other people must have a lifetime of experiences and their own list of personal values and their own reasons for why these things are important to them. And I should know about those. If I'm working closely with you, I should know about those, and we should share this. And if I'm interacting with students every day, knowing that my personal values, while they might be invisible to me, they come into play when I interact with students. They may not be able to list off Mrs. Salazar's personal values, but they feel them, and they feel if my values aren't quite aligned with theirs.
Getting in touch with your own values, and which also then opens you up to listen to others and understand where they're coming from. It just eliminates a lot of this sort of black and white thinking, you're wrong, I'm right, getting defensive in an argument with someone or a discussion with someone, because you're talking about it sort of surfaces a lot of nuance in humans. We're all very different and messy, and we have very unique experiences. Even if someone has the same exact shared value, they might have it for a completely different reason.
The way that we operate, our lifetime of experiences, the way that we came to be who we are matters. And my experiences have left me with a very different view of the world than you. than anyone else that I work with, and the students that are sitting in front of me. And if I can take the time to understand where my values, where my beliefs about what is right, what is wrong, what is okay, what is not okay, what is true, what is not, if I can take the time to understand where that came from, I can also take the time to understand how someone else might be right in their perspective, in the way that they think about what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is not. And so it is in that self-awareness that I am able to become socially aware, that I am able to have meaningful conversations with someone else, understand their perspective, assume best intentions, and not miss the human part of them with judgment.
Definitely. Getting out of the comfort zone is where you grow, right?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you again for doing this conversation today.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you.
To access EVERFI's cost-free social-emotional learning resources, please visit us at everfi.com/K-12.